It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. I am excited to share with you today's guest, Alexis Rosenberg. Appears regularly on television as a legal analyst and co-founded the law firm of Rosenberg Law PA with her husband, Bruce. The boutique civil litigation firm has offices in both coasts of Florida, focusing on business and healthcare. As a founding partner, her practice areas include healthcare law, insurance disputes, business litigation, as well as personal injury. Alexis, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very stoked to be here and get to talk to you.
So, let's just start off at the top. Why law for you? Why a legal career? What prompted that?
Well, I think, I consider myself a crisis manager. So I think that growing up, my household was I feel like at a very young age, I became a crisis manager. My father ended up having a massive heart attack when I was very young, which left him, unfortunately, brain damaged. And I think that there was a lot of upheaval, and I just kind of fell into being a crisis manager for a living.
And so if you're going to be a crisis manager, a way to get paid to manage crises is through the legal field.
Correct. And as also from, I guess, because I was good at it at a young age, my father at age 9 started calling me counselor. So maybe he was subliminally putting that into my head. But I do love being a lawyer. I'm not somebody who says, oh, my parents sent me to law school and made me go to law school, and I would have never been a lawyer. I really do truly love being a lawyer.
So was it the impact from your dad and his health issue, did that drive you to the area of healthcare in the legal field, or was just coincidental?
No, it was actually, I had no desire to go into health care, and it didn't even cross my mind. There's actually a funny story that right after I graduated law school, I was studying for the bar, and my sister was like, let's go see this psychic. And the psychic said to me, oh, I see you in the healthcare industry. And I looked at her and was like, are you insane? I have tons of student loans. I just graduated law school. I'm getting ready to take the bar. That's not happening. And I was representing business clients, and somebody that was healthcare related in the healthcare industry came through the door. Apparently, the firm and I did a really great job. And next thing we know, it was like the floodgates of clients that were had healthcare litigation issues. So,
I have to say, hats off, being in business, being partners with your spouse. You have my utmost admiration, utmost respect, and utmost admiration that you can do this. How did you guys decide to open a firm together? I mean, I've spoken to many people who, the husband, the wife, the spouses, however you want to look at it, are both in a similar profession, but they're like, oh, we don't work together. What drove that?
I guess we're a glutton for punishment. No, I think the way it kind of went down was I look back now and I think, oh my goodness, I was so naive. But a year out of law school, I actually a year after I got my license, I decided I was going to go out on my own, which is kind of crazy in hindsight. And my husband had his own practice. So once we got married, it was kind of like, okay, we each have our own separate practice. Let's just merge the practices together. But we really don't see each other. I get this question all of the time, or they're like, I don't know how both of you are still alive, working together. But we really don't. I mean, it's not like our offices are near each other. He has his caseload. I have my caseload. We have multiple offices. So we might be at different different locations. And it actually gives us the ability to have that ability to say to somebody, oh, can I toss this off of you, or this idea, or what do you think, or, that insight from a different perspective, because we're not necessarily on the same cases. Some of the larger cases, we will both be on those cases, but even in that instance, we kind of divide up the duties of who's going to do what, and there's not much overlap.
And, in looking at what have been some of the successes in building a firm and building a firm together, in building multiple offices, there's so many great parts of it, but for you personally, what have been some of your successes that you're proud of?
Well, I mean, I look at success from a different perspective. I try to look at the little successes, because I really feel that if you focus on the number one success or the big success, I mean, there's few of those, because that's why they're the biggest or the number one. It's really the smaller successes. For me, right away coming out of law school, I knew and that if I went big law, that I really was not going to be able to have everything, because I wasn't going to have any control over my schedule, over really my life. I mean, you're working 60, 70 hours a week or not, or more. So for me, the success was really finding that balance. And I think that's the key, because being able to set up the structure and having the control over how I'm going to set those structures up and that foundation to enable me to leave the office, to be able to have lunch with, my child, or to leave early, to be able to go to that game or whatever it may be. So that is a success for me, because I don't have to stress out about that. Now, not to say that it's not stressful having your own firm. I'm not saying that. There are other stresses, but it's to be able to have that balance. It's really that balance I see as a huge success, and was very important for me.
And so let's look at this, creating this balance. You're a mom there, you have several kids, you have, so it's, you have several children, you have several offices for the business, for the firm. How do you keep everything, there's one way of saying, how do you keep all the balls in the air, but actually, how do you actually keep everything effectively moving forward without honestly losing yourself?
Well, it's, well orchestrated chaos, as I call it. You really have to just have that team. People talk about the tribe. You have to set up, you can't do everything yourself. So if you haven't mastered the ability to delegate, then you're going to have a real problem, because there's no way I could run around, pick the kids up, make sure everything is done. You really have to be able to set up the structure of how it's all going to work. So everybody, now, are there days that I'm like, oh, I would like 5 minutes to myself? Yeah, that happens. That happens a lot. But I think that happens to most women who have children. I don't know about men, because I'm not one. I can't speak for them.
Well, I think that's very true. We don't know. We don't know how they feel. We're not interviewing them right now, and it would be great interviews.
Right. But I mean, I think everybody has that sense, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a mother. It could be somebody that's caring for an ailing parent that has the same thing. But for me, the key, and I think, I guess my bit of wisdom is, you just have to stay organized. You have to have people, whether you're paying them or whether you have that family support in place to help you. And you have to have the ability to face that you can't do it all, and you have to let go a little.
Any tips on delegating smartly? Because so often we're like, yeah, we're going to move more stuff off my plate, and there's such a desire to keep control.
Well, it is hard. I agree with you. It is hard because everybody in their head is like, if I did it myself, then it would be done how I want it to be done.
And I think I'm going to interrupt you here for a second because it's so true. If the more we see, we're like, but I could do it so much faster. I could do it better. I could do it the way I want to see it. And there, you can take those three and times it times three of the reasons why we shouldn't.
Exactly. I think that for me, I just had to sit down and say, okay, I made a checklist, I made a list, and I said, okay, what are the things that I can actually delegate? I might not be 100% happy, or what might not be the way that I would do it, but that I could actually delegate. And what are the things that there's no way that I could delegate? If I really take a hard look, there's no way I could delegate. And I mean, for instance, there's like, with the complex litigation, I've been practicing for over 20 years. I can't delegate that to, a first year associate. So that's something that I cannot delegate. Now, can I turn around? There's plenty of other stuff that I can delegate. And so taking that hard look, now that doesn't mean that some of those things that were in that column that I could possibly delegate, I was willing to let go of at that moment. I mean, there's a learning curve there. And then it gets down to, okay, what is your value? Is it really, from a business perspective, valuable to myself, my business, to be doing that task? Should I be doing that task? And if you look at it from just on the paper and a business model, then that's what helps me, I guess, get over that mountain. No, that's not a value to my business for me to be doing that task. It's a detriment to it because it's taking away what I should be doing that I cannot delegate.
And I think that's really well said, and such a great lesson, whether you're a law firm, a technology company, a financial company, it doesn't matter. It's a life lesson is what you're sharing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, one of I've gotten valuable information throughout my years from different people, but one, I guess, early on that was kind of astounding, which shouldn't have been astounding, is I was clerking for a law firm, and before I went to law school, and the owner of the firm, I said something to him, and he said, "This is a business. You do realize that a law firm is a business." And it sounds so simple, and but I had never. And it was before I went to law school, but I had never thought of it that way. I thought of it, oh, we're going and we're practicing law. It never occurred to me, no, you have to make the numbers, you have to make the overhead, you have to pay the employees. It's a business, and it has to be run like a business. So
we could stop right there, or we could probably talk about that for the next 5 hours of the importance of running a law firm, an accounting firm. You'd be surprised at actually people of any professional experience, and actually you have to realize that you have to run it as a business.
Yes, you do.
What were some of the surprises in running a business for you?
I think some of the surprise. I mean, there were a lot of surprises running a business. I think the HR probably was the biggest surprise. I mean, I think that running a business, when you get to the place to realize that a law firm is a business, then you have to realize there are a lot of moving parts, and those employees have their own emotions, their own baggage, their own issues that are going on, and that to be able to run it, you have to be able to have a system to balance all of those. Right. So you kind of need a degree in psychology, which also was kind of a surprise to me, because I think, practicing law, they probably should make us take classes in psychology, because, I found that it's not really the client has their crisis that I'm managing, but it's like you could fix that crisis very quickly and they're not where they need to be. I mean, my goal that I try to strive for is to get them on the other side of the crisis and leave them in a place where they're thriving, because I can fix that legal issue and they're still in, a different mindset. So I never thought that I would need a degree in psychology, but I do think I might write to my law school and say, you might want to give business classes as well as a couple of psychology classes.
100%. And so in looking at the business piece for a second, what is, in developing a book of business that builds a firm, what has been an asset for you? What has helped you? How have you navigated that? Because it is so important in so many areas, and people think it's something they'll do, like, well, I have to learn this, this, and this first.
I mean, I definitely think that you have to change with the times. I mean, that 20 years ago, it was different than it is post-COVID, for instance. And you have to know that as much as law wants to stay in, I don't know, the 1950s, 60s, to be profitable, you have to change with the times and you have to be willing to change. But I mean, I think that for me, it's always been networking. It's people have to trust you and you have to get out there. And early on, even in law school, I was out networking, going to different places, talking to people, and not selling. It's not a selling. You want, when something happens, that they call whomever up and they say, oh, I have the perfect person for you. And, or you need to talk to so-and-so. And so I think that's very valuable. I think especially now these attorneys are coming out, and because of, now with COVID, it's gotten a little easier because we're doing so much online. But before that, they were coming out and they weren't really interacting. There was like a lack of interacting, and I would, hire them, and it would be like, I have to pick the phone up, and I'm like, yeah. And it got to the point where staff, it was one of my questions in the interview, are you comfortable talking on the phone? Where years I never had to, would never have had that question as one of the interview questions, but I was having and seeing that they were coming in and they weren't comfortable to even talk on the phone. They wanted to do everything. So I think you have to, like any other business, you have to build, this rapport with people where they want not only to give you business, but they want to go and stand up and say, yeah, that's the person you should go to. And that's who you can trust. And so, and the only way I find that you can do that is with some sort of interaction with them.
I love the information. And I agree with you 100%. So one tip that you would leave for the upcoming leaders, the leaders of tomorrow, one thing you learned that has been irreplaceable for you?
You have to have the foundation. When you're starting a business, you have to start not where you are today with the foundations, with the file management, with the accounting, with the CPAs. You have to start years down. Where do you anticipate that you're going to be 3, 4, 5 years from now, and set up the foundations for that? Because going back, and I give this advice all the time, and I always get, oh, well, that will cost money. It's gotten a lot easier now because everything's on monthly instead of you just having to go in and buy all these softwares, softwares 100% on the front end. And then I get calls because they don't listen to me. They're like, oh, I have 5 cases. I don't need a file management, or I have 5 cases. I don't need to have that bookkeeper or whatever it may be. And then they're going back in the middle of the growth, which creates a scaling issue, and trying to correct it and get it in, and as well as I say, right, you're starting this business, how you want stuff done. For each task you do you write it down how to do it. So it's in a manual and you hire somebody, and that doesn't happen. And then they're paying people to write these manuals years later. So the foundation is very important. Set the business up with the structures and the foundations as if it's 3 to 5 years from now, and surround yourself with a diverse tribe of people, because you want not to surround yourself with the same people that do exactly what you do, because then you need to throw around ideas with them, and the same people that do what you're doing are facing the same struggles or questions. And if you just have somebody from a different area, I mean, years ago, I remember I was at lunch with a friend of mine who I consider part of my tribe, and she does marketing in the beauty industry. And I said, we're having this problem with inter-office communication. I said, it's like these emails back and forth, and it's like 20 million emails for a simple question. And she's like, have you heard of Slack? I'm like, no, but she was in the digital marketing and they were right there. And I'm not promoting Slack. I'm just giving as an example, but she was like, have you heard? I had never heard of it. At that time, nobody in my circle of lawyers friends had heard about it, but she threw it out there, and it was kind of like at the moment, a game changer. It really was. So those type of things, you definitely need to have a diverse tribe.
And a couple of things that I love what you're saying is, look at the vision of the firm you're building and start building it for where it's going, not from where it is at the beginning.
Exactly. And that's hard for people to wrap their head around. It really is.
1,000%. It is very challenging. And I actually am a fan of Slack. We do use it at Slater Success. And it was a game changer. We've been on Slack for years now.
Yeah.
And it was a game changer in keeping email communication down. And again, I'm not saying you have to have Slack, but you need to have something. Something, if it's a Teams, if your company is on Teams, if you're on Slack, if you're on some platform that keeps your inbox for work and not inter-office communication.
Yes, 100%. Or it gets crazy. I mean, you just can't find anything, and then you have to have software for that software. But once again, organization. It gets back to organization.
How do you line up all the ducks? Start by seeing the ducks lined up.
Exactly. Well, that gets back to what you're saying. You have to, before you build a business, you need to sit down and where do you expect yourself to be? And have that plan, that roadmap. Otherwise, you're just walking in circles and hoping that you're going to come across a leprechaun's pot of gold. I mean, you have to have a plan. You do.
Alexis, I adore you, a woman after my own heart. How could our listeners follow you, learn more, and be in touch?
Well, they can follow me on Instagram at litigation Lex, or you can go to our website, which is rosenberglawpa.com.
Excellent. Cannot thank you enough for joining us here today. And listeners, all of Alexis's information is below, so do not worry that if you didn't get the spelling, you can click on, just scroll up and take a look below. You'll also see an area for comments. Take a moment and say, what did I actually learn by showing up and listening to Alexis and I's conversation today? Okay, what did you learn? And then put that down, put a comma, and write down, what are you going to implement from there? Your success and growth is about long-term implementation and not just listening to podcasts. Love myself a good podcast. I want to listen to them. I want to take something away, and I want to take those actions. So we're looking forward to supporting you and taking action consistently. Stay tuned to more Her Success Story as we come out to you with fresh new episodes every Monday. Thank you for joining us here today.